text came through while I had both hands deep in a tray of wet concrete, levelling it with a trowel before it could start to set. My phone was buzzing against the plywood 3 feet away, and I let it buzz. When I finally peeled off my gloves and looked, it was from my mother. Dinner Saturday at the Hartwell. 7 o'clock. Wear something nice for once. Your sister has news. I stared at that last word, news, and I already knew what it meant. It meant we'd all be performing this same play we'd performed 100 times, the one where my sister stood centre stage and I held up the back wall. I texted back that I'd be there. Then I went back to my concrete. I should tell you what I do, because it's the whole knot of this thing. I pour foundations. I build things. 12 years ago, I started a construction company out of the bed of a used pickup truck and a credit card I was terrified of. And now I run crews on commercial builds across 3 counties, office towers, restaurants, a wing of a regional hospital. The kind of work where if I do my job right, nobody ever thinks about me again. They just walk into a building and trust the floor will hold. My family has never once asked me a question about it. Not one. In their version of me, I am a woman who comes home with dirt under her nails and a hard hat in her truck, and that is the beginning and end of the story. My mother introduces my sister as my daughter the attorney. She introduces me when she introduces me at all, as my other daughter. She's in construction, is it still? Like she's not sure it'll still be true by the time the sentence ends. The restaurant where we were meeting Saturday. The Hartwell. I knew it well. Better than anyone at that table would ever guess. But I'll get to that. Saturday I showered off the day, scrubbed under my nails with a brush until they were as clean as they get, and put on the one nice dress I own. Dark green, simple. I have a habit, when I'm nervous, of touching the small gold band my grandmother left me, turning it around my finger. I did that the whole drive over. The Hartwell sits on the corner of Bellwether and 4th, in a brick building that used to be a textile mill. High ceilings, exposed beams, that warm amber light that makes everyone look like the best version of themselves. When I walked in, the hostess smiled at me. A real smile, not a customer smile. And I gave her a tiny shake of my head. Not tonight. She understood. She walked me back to the table like I was anyone. They were already there. My mother in pearls. My father with a glass of red already half gone. My sister Coralie glowing in a way that told me the news was good and big. And beside her, a man I'd never met, clean-cut, expensive watch, the kind of confidence that comes from never having been told no. There she is, my mother said, in the voice she uses when she means finally, we almost ordered without you. I sat. I unfolded my napkin. I folded my hands in my lap and waited for the play to start. It started fast. This is Whitcomb, my sister said, putting her hand on the man's arm. We're engaged. She flushed a diamond the size of a chickpea. He's a partner at Brennan Mercer. Real estate development. We're doing a project together, actually. There's this whole stretch downtown that's about to. She waved her hand. Transform. That's wonderful, I said. And I meant it, mostly. I am capable of being happy for her. I have just never gotten to find out if she's capable of the same. Whitcomb shook my hand across the table. Firm grip. He looked at my hand a half-second too long, and I knew he'd felt the calluses. And what do you do? He asked. Polite. Open. The first person at that table in years to ask me directly. Before I could answer, my mother answered for me. She does construction. She said it the way you'd mention that someone has a rash. Manual sort of work. She's always been our little, what do they call it, labourer. She laughed, light, like it was a sweet thing. My father chuckled into his wine. Remember when she was 9 and wanted to be an architect? And we said, sweetheart, maybe start with something you can actually do. He shook his head, fond and dismissive all at once. And here we are. She found her level. Her level. The phrase landed in my chest like a dropped brick. I kept my face still. I have learned to keep my face very still. Coralie laughed too, and then she leaned toward Whitcomb in a stage whisper that was meant to be heard by the whole table. Honestly, it's a little embarrassing at family things. She shows up smelling like a parking garage. I love her, but God. She turned to me with a smile so warm it could have fried an egg. No offence, sweetie, you know I say it with love. None taken, I said. My voice came out level. That surprised even me. The waiter came, we ordered. Whitcomb ordered a bottle of something he pronounced carefully, and my father made a show of approving. The food came and it was good. It was always going to be good. I tasted the new menu myself 2 weeks ago, and the conversation moved on without me, the way it always does. A river going around a stone. I want you to understand, I wasn't angry yet. Not really. I'd heard versions of this my whole life. You build up scar tissue. What I felt that night, sitting there turning my grandmother's ring, was something quieter and older. I felt invisible. I felt like a person who had spent her life laying the floors that other people danced on, and not one of them had ever once looked down and wondered who put them there. Then Coralie pivoted and the night tilted. So, Whitcomb's project, he said, it's huge. It's going to redefine the whole Bellwether corridor. Mixed use, luxury units, retail. The only thing in the way is a couple of these old holdout properties. There's this one restaurant. She gestured vaguely at the room around us, not realizing, well, places like this one. Charming, sure, but they're sitting on land worth 10 times what they make. Whitcomb's firm just buys them out. Easy. The owners are usually thrilled to take the money and disappear. It's just good business, Whitcomb said, swirling his wine. Half these little operations are run by people who got lucky once and have no idea what they're sitting on. You make them an offer. They roll over. They don't have the sophistication to know what they've got. He smiled. No offence to the working folks. Somebody's got to pour the concrete. He nodded at me like he was being generous. My father laughed. My mother laughed. Coralie beamed at her clever, sophisticated fiancé, and I sat very still and felt something turn over in my chest, slow, like an engine catching. Because here is the thing I had not told them. Here is the thing I never tell anyone, the thing the hostess understood with one shake of my head. The Hartwell, this building, this restaurant, these beams and this amber light and this floor we were all sitting on was mine. I didn't just build it, I own it. The mill had been a derelict shell 6 years ago, condemned, scheduled for demolition. I bought it at auction with everything I had, and a loan that kept me up at night for 2 years. I gutted it with my own crews. I poured the floor under Whitcomb's $300 shoes, and when the construction was done I didn't sell. I kept it, and I leased the ground floor to a chef I believed in, and the restaurant took off, and the building's value tripled, and I held on to every brick. And the Bellwether Corridor project that my sister's fiancé was so proud of, I knew about it. Of course I knew about it. Brennan Mercer had been sending me letters for 8 months trying to buy the Hartwell. Genetic, escalating, faintly threatening letters addressed to the holding company, signed by a junior associate. I'd had my lawyer decline every one. The man sitting across from me had no idea that the unsophisticated owner stonewalling his flagship development, the single property his whole downtown deal hinged on, was the woman his fiancé had just called a parking garage smelling labourer. I didn't say any of it. Not yet. I wanted to. God, I wanted to stand up and let it all out. But I've learned that the loudest thing you can do in a room is stay quiet while everyone else digs. So I ate my dinner. I asked Whitcomb polite questions. And these holdout owners, what happens if they won't sell? He shrugged. Everyone sells. It's just a matter of the right number. And if not, he smiled. There are other kinds of pressure. Zoning. Inspections. We're patient. We're patient. My father nodded along, impressed. My sister glowed. I filed every word away. It was near the end of the meal, over coffee, that the thing happened that I'll remember until I'm old. A man at the next table, older, silver hair, a quiet kind of presence, had been half listening, the way you do in a restaurant when the next table is louder than they think. He was dining alone with a glass of port and a notebook. I'd noticed him because I notice everyone in my buildings. It's a habit I can't turn off. At some point, Whitcomb had gotten loud about the Bellwether deal. dropping the name of his firm, the scale of the project, his certainty. The older man set down his pen. He turned slightly in his chair and looked at our table with mild, genuine curiosity. "Forgive me," he said. "I couldn't help overhearing. You're with Brennan Mercer? On the Bellwether corridor?" Whitcomb sat up, pleased to be recognised. "I'm leading it, actually." "Ah," the man nodded slowly. "Then maybe you can settle something for me." He gestured, a small open-handed gesture that took in the whole room. "I've been trying to get a meeting with whoever owns this building for the better part of a year. The Hartwell. My foundation does historic preservation grants. We'd love to designate this mill. It's one of the last intact ones in the region, but the owner's holding company keeps politely turning everyone away." A small smile. "Including, I gather, your firm." The table had gone quiet. My father set down his fork. The man looked around, that mild curiosity sharpening into something pointed. "So I find myself genuinely wondering," he said, "who does own this place? Because whoever it is has turned down a great deal of money from a great many people, very calmly, for a very long time. That's not someone who got lucky once. That's someone who knows exactly what they're holding." And then, I swear I didn't plan it, the young waiter who'd been refilling water at the next table leaned over to the older man and said, low but not low enough, "Oh, the owner. She's actually here tonight, sir. She comes in sometimes." And his eyes, before he could stop them, flicked to me. Everything stopped. I watched it move across the table like a shadow crossing a field. My father's eyes followed the waiter's. My mother's mouth opened slightly. Whitcomb's wineglass paused halfway to his lips, and Coralie, my sister, looked at me with an expression I had waited 30 years to see and never thought I would. Not contempt. Confusion, sliding toward dread. "What is he?" she started. I set down my coffee cup. I turned my grandmother's ring once around my finger, and then I looked at the older man and I said, in the same level voice I'd used all night, "That would be me." I want to tell you I felt triumphant. I didn't exactly. What I felt was strange and clean, like the moment after you finally set down something heavy you've been carrying so long you forgot it had weight. "I'm sorry," I said to him. "You've had a hard time getting a meeting. That's on me. I get a lot of letters. I've been—" I almost smiled. Protective of the place. I'd gutted this mill myself. My crew poured the floor we're all sitting on. I let my eyes pass over the table, slow. I'd be glad to talk about preservation. I'd love nothing more than to see it protected. Then I turned to Whitcomb, who had gone the colour of the tablecloth. "And you," I said, not unkindly, because I didn't need to be unkind. The facts were doing all the work. "You've been sending me letters for 8 months. Brennan Mercer, the Bellwether corridor. The Hartwell is the property you can't close. I'm the owner who won't roll over." I tilted my head. The unsophisticated one. The one who got lucky once and doesn't know what she's sitting on. Nobody said anything. My father's face had collapsed into something I didn't have a name for. "I poured this floor," I said again quietly. "I know exactly what I'm sitting on. I always have." Coralie found her voice. "Why? Why didn't you ever say anything?" And there it was, the real question, the only one that mattered. I thought about it. I gave her an honest answer because she'd earned at least that. "Because I wanted to know," I said. "If any of you would ever ask, if anyone at this table would ever look at me and get curious about who I actually was instead of who you decided I was when I was 9 years old." I looked at my father. "You told me to find a level I could actually manage." I did. It turned out to be the foundation of every building you've ever admired and never thought to wonder about. I looked at my mother. "I'm not in construction, Mom. I'm construction. I'm the company. I have 41 people on payroll who think I'm worth working hard for. I just never figured out how to be worth that to you." The older man, the preservationist, had the grace to look down at his notebook and pretend he wasn't there. My mother started to say my name, the soft pleading version of it, the one that comes out only when she needs something. I held up my hand. "Not angry, just done." "I'm going to give him a meeting," I said, nodding at the older man. And I'm going to get this building protected so that men like your fiancé can't bulldoze it into luxury condos. That's what I'm going to do this week. I stood up. I left enough cash on the table to cover all of us, which I noticed none of them tried to refuse. Congratulations on the engagement, Coralie. I mean that. And then I did the thing I'd never once done at that table. I walked out first. The hostess caught my eye on the way out, and there was a question in her face. I gave her a small nod. I'm all right. I was actually. More than all right. I sat in my truck in the parking lot for a minute before I turned the key. Through the big front windows, I could see them still sitting there. 4 people in expensive clothes, not talking, not looking at each other. The amber light made them look small. Here's what I've thought about a lot since that night, and it's the only reason I'm telling you any of this. For 30 years, I believed that if I just built enough, achieved enough, owned enough, eventually the achievement would speak for me and they would finally see me. I thought the worth was something I had to prove, and the truth I drove home with that night, with my grandmother's ring warm on my finger, was that I'd had it backwards the whole time. They were never going to see me, because the not seeing had nothing to do with what I built. It was about what they needed me to be, the lesser one, the cautionary tale, the flaw. You can't earn your way out of a role someone needs you to play, so I stopped trying to. The preservationist's name, by the way, is Aldous, and his foundation came through. The Hartwell is a protected historic landmark now. There's a small brass plaque by the front door with the name of the woman who restored the old textile mill on Bellwether and Forth. People walk past it every day without reading it on their way into a good dinner, trusting the floor to hold. It holds. I poured it myself. My sister called me 3 months later, not to apologise. That's not how my family works, but to ask, carefully, whether there was any flexibility on the building, because Whitcomb's deal had stalled and the firm was in a difficult spot. I told her I wished them well. I told her the building wasn't for sale and never would be, and that I'd protected it precisely so that no one could ever take it from someone who'd built something real with their own 2 hands. She got quiet. Then she said, "You know, I never knew you owned that place." "I know," I said. "You never asked." And I wished her a good night, and I meant it, and I hung up, and I went out to my garage, where a set of blueprints was waiting on the table for the next thing I was going to build. Something that would hold. Something with my name on it, even if no one ever read it. That's the whole story. I'm not sharing it to make anyone the villain. I'm sharing it because somewhere out there is a person who is being told, gently or cruelly, that they've found their level. And I want that person to know that the people pouring the foundations are holding up the entire world. And the fact that no one looks down to thank them doesn't make the floor any less theirs. Look down sometime. Wonder who built the thing you're standing on. It might be the person you stopped seeing a long time ago. I keep coming back to the moment Whitcomb called me one of the working folks who got lucky once, and how my whole family nodded along like it was gospel. The thing nobody at that table understood is that nothing about the Hartwell was luck. Luck doesn't pour a foundation at 5 a.m. in January. Luck doesn't sign a loan that keeps you awake for 2 years. Every brick of that building was the direct result of a choice I made and then refused to abandon. And every cruel thing my family believed about me was the direct result of a choice they made to decide who I was at 9 years old and never look again. That's the part I want you to sit with, because it's the whole engine of this story. Coralie didn't humiliate me because I'd failed. She humiliated me because I'd succeeded in a way she'd been taught not to respect, and respecting it would have meant admitting she'd been wrong about me for 30 years. People don't fight the truth because it's false. They fight it because it costs them something to be right. So here's what I'd tell you if you were sitting across from me. Guard your character the way I guarded that building, quietly, stubbornly, without needing an audience to confirm it's worth protecting. I never once lied to my family about what I did. I just stopped explaining myself to people who decided not to listen, and there's a difference between hiding and refusing to beg. The honesty was always mine to keep, and it was the one thing they couldn't take. Use your head too, the way I learned to. For years I tried to win them with achievement, thinking if I built enough they'd finally see me. That was foolish, and the smart move, the one that actually set me free, was realizing you cannot earn your way out of a role someone needs you to play. Once I understood that, I stopped spending my strength on the wrong door. And the last thing, the one that matters most, none of it would have happened without the part of me that kept showing up after every find your level, every laugh into a wine glass, every dinner I drove home from feeling invisible. That stubbornness, that refusal to let other people's small picture of me become my own, that's what poured the floor. Anyone can have a hard week. The question is whether you keep laying brick after the applause never comes, when the only person who will ever know what it cost is you. I poured a floor that strangers walk across every night without thinking. They trust it to hold, and it does. That's enough for me now. Build something real, even if no one looks down to thank you. The floor is still yours.